Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming here today and your patience. I'm just going to start out really briefly. You all recognize me as the sheriff from Broward County. Today is kind of a collaborative effort to bring forth some new efforts that are going to be taking place both at the state level and trickling down throughout the county here in Broward. Really quick, over the last 30 days or so, you've probably had an opportunity to see me take some actions within the county related to organizing and getting our organization and the sheriff's office up to speed and back up to its tasks and responsibility. One of the things you probably learned from seeing some of the decision making at the top that I've been able to produce is the concept of accountability and putting the right people in place that are going to ensure that our community is safe by way of providing strong leadership. Over the next few months, you'll continue to see such activity, and you're going to hear about some things today that's going to reiterate that concept of having accountability not only in our county, but throughout our state. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the Lieutenant Governor and allow her to bring us up to speed.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Sheriff, for everything you've been doing over the past 30 days. It is a testament to this governor, to the focus he has on public safety and accountability. And you're going to be hearing about a lot of the things that this governor is doing and has already done. Most importantly, this governor understands that we have single primary responsibility to keep our residents safe. He understands that from the perspective of being a veteran. He understands that from the perspective of being a federal prosecutor. But most importantly, he understands that from the perspective of being a father. And on the eve of a tragic day in Florida's history, this governor continues to show his commitment, not just to this county, but to every single county in the state of Florida, to make sure that we never have a tragedy like this on our hands again. And so I'm proud to stand alongside him, and I'm proud to introduce the governor of the great state of Florida.
Well, thank you, Jeanette. And tomorrow will mark the one-year anniversary of one of the worst days that we've had in the history of Florida, the massacre of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Many of the families affected by that, of course, are here today. I think one of the things that came out of that was really an unprecedented effort by folks who had their lives shattered to take action so that this would not happen in the future. And I'm proud to say today that earlier today I issued an executive order implementing a number of the recommendations that I have the authority to implement through executive action of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas Commission. Some of these should have been done earlier, and so we're making sure our Department of Education and relevant agencies are moving full steam ahead on that. And that's really a testament to some of the folks standing behind me who work very, very hard on that. And so I think that executive order will make a difference. The second thing I announced today is if you look at how law enforcement typically handles criminal activity, most investigations tend to be more reactive. Someone does something, you then investigate, try to hold them accountable. There's certain areas where the default posture is being proactive. In Florida, with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they take a proactive posture to protect the governor, me and my wife, from any threats. The U.S. Secret Service takes a proactive posture against threats to high public officials at the federal level, including the President of the United States. FDLE has started to move forward on a threat assessment model for mass violence. And I think that when you see some of the things that have happened, not just at Marjory Stoneman Douglas, but through other parts of our state and country, a lot of times people who are committing mass violence, this is not a secret that this is something that could happen. And so if you're proactive, if you're approaching it almost like an intelligence operation, you have an opportunity to have an intervention before this happens. And so I've told FDLE to beef up these efforts. We're going to have to train more people to think this way. And obviously there's going to be a huge requirement that local folks do it, but at the state level, we need to be proactive. And so we're going to move forward on that. It will take some time to get that to where we need to do, but my hope would be that Florida would really be a leader in a proactive posture when it comes to really discrete type of horrific crimes, these mass killings, to get ahead of it. The guy from SunTrust in Sebring just recently was texting his ex-girlfriend saying he was going to kill innocent people. And if you go to Indiana, and we're still investigating some of that, there were all kind of warning signs in Indiana throughout his entire life. So let's heed these warning signs, and let's have apparatus in place that can take action. Now, today, my final announcement. We were here in Broward about a month ago with many of the families to try to bring accountability to the sheriff's office. I think that we have done that. I think the sheriff's office is going in a much better direction, and I know many of the families are pleased at the progress that's been made. Many also have had grave concerns with the school board and the superintendent of the school district here. I've been asked to potentially suspend the superintendent, just as I did the sheriff. The problem is that I don't have the authority to do that for an official who is appointed. I also was asked maybe look into some of the school board members who are supporting kind of the old regime and have been resistant to change. And I looked at that, and yes, they are elected, but it's not clear to me that having policy disputes would be a reason to exercise that power. And I'm also mindful of the fact that there was just an election just last year where many of these issues were the foremost issues in the campaign, and the voters of this county chose to return some of those school board members or elect some with that posture. So I was not convinced that I had the authority, given the facts, to suspend, but I also was mindful of the fact, having just had an election when these were all very live issues, may not be an appropriate use. So what we are doing today is announcing that and I think at the end of the day, I want accountability looking backwards, but I also want to protect Floridians moving forward. And so the best tool that we have to bring accountability, but also move forward in a better way, is a petition that I filed today with the Florida Supreme Court for a statewide grand jury to look into not only the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas incident, but how this school district here and other school districts have handled money for security, have handled all of these issues that impact the safety of our schools. It's not limited to Broward County. It is multi-jurisdictional, but I think it's something that is warranted. I think it's something that may lead to potential accountability measures by a grand jury, but it could also lead to, and I think it will, lead to recommendations about what some of the various school districts could do better. They could provide information to the state of Florida, and we can then take action, as people on the local can take action. Now, the difference between a statewide grand jury and something like the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission is this statewide grand jury will have full-bore subpoena power. They will be able to compel witnesses. They will be able to compel documents in a way that the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission was just not able to do. The mandate is also broader. It's not just looking at this, but how this district and other districts have handled matters relating to school security. And I think ultimately having that broader mandate will be better for us in terms of getting the truth, holding people accountable, and then making sure we're going forward in a posture that is most conducive to public safety. I'm happy to take some questions, but before I do, I wanted to bring up Andy Pollack, and I know he's going to bring up some other folks who would like to say a few words.
First, I want to thank the First Lady and the Governor for making this day happen. This day means a lot to, as you can see, all the families are here. We don't need tomorrow to remind us of what happened. We live it every day, and we've been fighting for justice for our murdered loved ones, and this is just the beginning. So in that, there's some people that also want to talk today, and I'm going to bring them up. It's Deborah Hickson, Tony Montalto, Max Shackner, and Hunter Pollack.
Hi, good afternoon. As a teacher in the Broward County Public School System and the wife of someone who was murdered in the most preventable mass shooting to date, I'd like to thank the governor for stepping up and hearing our cries of urgency and the lack of the sense of urgency in our area to step up and make changes for policy that help to keep our schools and our communities safer. Thank you.
Some of you know I'm the president of Stand With Parkland, which was formed by all our families. Today, we'd like to thank Governor DeSantis for taking the safety of all of Florida's students and staff members seriously, specifically here in Broward County. This builds on the great work of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Public Safety Commission. All families in Florida should support this effort to hold our elected officials accountable, to make sure they perform their duties in a responsible manner. The families that lost loved ones last year have all worked hard to see some form of accountability to keep all our students and staff members safe. And once again, we thank the governor for making that happen today.
Hello. As everyone knows, I'm Hunter Pollock. I lost my little sister, Meadow, in the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas tragedy. Today is the beginning of the end for the possible corruption in the Broward County School Board. It is evident that there is a hornet's nest of failures that led to my sister's death. Governor DeSantis has made a bold move today, one that will ensure any wrongdoing will be brought to light. Since last Valentine's Day, my family's mission has been not to only make our school safe, but to make sure no stone is left unturned. The governor has turned the boulder today. Thank you so much. Let's fix it.
Ever since February 14th and my little boy, Alex Schachter, was slaughtered in his classroom, I've been fighting for accountability, and we gave the school board and the superintendent, they've had a year to fix Broward County and make our schools safe. This is ground zero, and they continue to fail us. So I want to thank Governor DeSantis for instituting this action of accountability. And finally, I think that we're going to be able to make our schools safe. So thank you very much, Governor.
After my daughter was murdered, I wanted accountability. Governor DeSantis said that he would hold people accountable. And if Ron said he was for accountability, then I was going to be with him. You heard Ron DeSantis in the debate say, I'm going to work with Andy Pollock and I'm going to fix it. And this is part of it. This is a man that follows through on his campaigns. Look at the families behind him, what he's doing for all of us. It means so much for us to stand with this great governor today. You know, when your child is murdered in school, you expect to get some answers. You don't really expect a cover-up. And you really don't expect to see your superintendent say that the school district did everything right and call any questions about what happened fake news. You would expect, when it is discovered that a social experiment that doesn't hold kids accountable for their actions created a dangerous culture of leniency, that changes would be made. Rather than take responsibility, Superintendent Runcie chose to stonewall the press and mislead the public. The Sun Sentinel has exposed a lot already. I know even more. Through my civil suit investigation, I will uncover and expose everyone that was accountable and responsible for the deaths of the 17 people. But there are some things that only trained law enforcement can uncover. And that's what's going to happen now. There will be an extensive investigation into the Broward County District, and everyone will be held accountable. Last time this happened, people went to jail. This time, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Ashley Moody, the state's Attorney General. It is an honor for me to be here today with Governor DeSantis to announce this needed action to ensure our children are safe in Florida schools. I, along with every parent of school-aged children in this state, expect that when we drop our children off at school in the morning, we will be able to pick them up in the afternoon. The reality is that 17 families in Parkland had that expectation nearly a year ago and were never able to see their children again. It is necessary that we learn from the failures of that tragic day and continue to work diligently to ensure it never happens again. In the aftermath of Parkland, our lawmakers immediately designated funds and crafted requirements for school districts to do many things, including fortify our campuses, identify threats and students needing immediate mental health attention, develop drills and personnel to better protect students, Shockingly, sadly, despite these laws, many that are in charge ensuring these steps are taken may have failed to act. As a mom and as Florida's Attorney General, I will passionately pursue the truth, and through our statewide prosecutor and the grand jury that Governor DeSantis has petitioned from the Supreme Court, will ensure accountability for Florida's parents. Just like every other person in Florida, those in charge of the safety and security of our children must obey the law. If taxpayer money is not being used as it is intended to secure our schools, if a safe school officer has not been assigned to schools, if threat assessment teams have not been assembled, or criminal activity is not reported as required, all Floridians will know. And those in charge of ensuring this is done will be accountable to Floridians for these decisions. Our Office of Statewide Prosecution will diligently pursue this grand jury investigation, and I thank Governor DeSantis for this bold action and affirmation that our laws are not merely suggestions, and all of us that hold public office are accountable to them. Thank you.
Happy to take any questions if anyone has any for us. No, I mean, as I said in my comments before, I heard the cries of the families about how some of this has gone down, and I looked to see what my authority would be, and basically under Florida law, you have to show that someone had been misfeasance, incompetent, certain things, and to me, they have made policy decisions that I disagree with, that these families disagree with. I don't think that they've necessarily conducted themselves in an open and transparent way, but I had a question about whether my authority would reach that. And then I also just, the fact that we ran these elections just last, I guess what, August of last year? And all these issues were front and center in that, and the voters here made their decision knowing that. Had this all happened after the election, then you could look at it maybe a little bit differently. But I think those two factors just convinced me that would not have been an appropriate use of my authority. Now, having said that, I think when you have a statewide grand jury, that is something that is real. I mean, that has a lot of teeth. It's a little bit different than kind of a grand jury down the street, just in the sense of normally a prosecutor would bring John Doe we think may have committed a robbery, indict or not indict. This is looking at a whole host of issues. I think they're going to have a very broad mandate, and I think they're going to have the power, subpoena and otherwise, to be able to get to the facts and get the truth and either hold people accountable, recommend changes, and again, not just in Broward. I mean, I think there's other districts where there have been problems, and this, as a multi-jurisdictional grand jury, will have the ability to look there as well. So I don't know, relieve or not relieve. I guess it depends on what you think. But I think that this is something that is very serious, and I think that it's something that we're gonna look at and evaluate who they're holding accountable. But then obviously, whatever recommendations they have for us, we're gonna heed that. We're gonna heed that. That's not up to me in terms of how much Broward versus others. That's going to be how the statewide prosecutor is going to have to approach that. In our petition, we did ask that the grand jury be based in Broward, because we know there's a lot of issues with Broward. But, when these things happen, you have different facts come out about different things. And I know that we've had reports from different districts where people are concerned. So they're going to be able to do it. But we know that there's going to be a lot of stuff in Broward for sure. Whether that is the most, I think that only time will tell. Well, if you look at, they had a more limited mandate to focus on this particular mass shooting. They didn't, for example, get into the use of the bond that had all the money for security, and then that was never used for the intended purpose. There's a whole host of other issues that were just simply outside the scope. Also, the commission didn't really, either they didn't really have it or didn't use it you didn't have subpoenas flying. I mean, it was not the same thing. And so I think that this complements it. I think the commission did a good job with what they had, but I think this is going to have a much broader reach in terms of looking at how this and other school districts have been operating with respect to and Ashley did a good job of laying out some of the concerns that they're going to look into. Well, it could. I mean, I think that, there's going to be, I think from the sheriff's office to what Andy's doing to this, I mean, there's going to be a lot of possibilities there. But I can't speculate about what will happen or not happen. And look, the grand jury, they have the ability to recommend things. They can say, so for example, I suspended the superintendent of Okaloosa Schools because she was subject to these grand jury reports. They said, we don't know that it's fully criminal, but we think that she's putting kids at risk. So that gave me the hook to say, wait a minute, I should suspend her. So there's going to be things that potentially come out that may not rise to indictment. Some may rise to indictment. I think they just have to follow the facts on that. Well, it's under statute. I think it can only go for a year. I think it's impaneled for a year. So. Have you met with the superintendent yourself? I have not met with him. I know he has been in contact with my commissioner of education, and but I haven't met with them. And I looked at the law, and to me, the hook really does say elected official. So I was really convinced that I would not have had the authority to do anything in that regard with respect to an appointed superintendent. So I didn't even need to kind of go down the road of trying to say, well, let him explain himself. I kind of determined early on that I just didn't have the authority under current law to do that. So. Well, I think that you've had a lot of the parents here who have feelings about that, and that's why we want to have a grand jury look into some of the finances and how some of these things work. There was a report just recently about there was more funds available in 2013. They said, no, we're not going to take that. So there were certain decisions made about funding. There was certain money that was raised for a certain purpose that may not have been used. But, I don't want this to be litigated by like a news report or someone. I mean, let's get the actual facts and then go from there. But the issue of using some of these bonds, that's going to be one of the mandates of the grand jury to look into that. One more. Oh, yeah, no, it is. So, well, we recommended it be here just because we know Broward is going to have to be looked at. I don't know if Hamilton County needs to be looked at. I think some other counties we've got information probably need to be looked at, but we knew Broward needed to be, and so it has to be multi-jurisdictional under the statute, and so we think there'll be multiple school districts that are looked at, but clearly most of or there was more evidence of going Broward than there were on some of the other districts, and so but what'll happen now is that this, once this is impaneled, that then provides an avenue for folks who have information on some of these things to be able to let them know what they have. So I think you're going to see a number of districts that are going to be looked at, and hopefully we get a lot of stuff ferreted out from this. So. Well, this is a 1-year process. That's just what I can go back and try to get another one at the end of that, but that's what we're looking at. And look, I don't want it to be permanent at all, because I want to actually, as Andy would say, fix the problems. And I think a lot of the parents here have been frustrated by, even though the legislature passed a lot of reforms, I've now implemented some of those. They've gotten a whole bunch of stuff done that I think has been that helps people's safety. But it seems like locally here, which was ground zero, that there hasn't been the same sense of urgency that you would expect in the aftermath of something like this. So, but we hope we fix it. We want to be proactive on this stuff, And I think that Florida will be better for it. So.
Can you talk about the idea of indictments, how that fits into the accountability and importance of the possibility of indictments in your question?
Well, obviously, that is one way of holding people accountable. And the facts have to justify it, though. I mean, I'm not going to advocate an indictment if there's not sufficient facts. But when you look at some of these issues, we have a number of statutes in Florida, and if there's violations, the grand jury will be able to pursue those, obviously, in a way that the MSD Commission would not be able to. So I think that it's good that we have that capability. And you live in Broward? Yes, my daughter goes to the school next to Mark. So the difference is, the reason I was able to do that with Okaloosa is because the Okaloosa superintendent is elected by the voters, and under Florida law, my suspension powers attach when a county official is elected. Runcie is appointed, so it goes outside of the authority that I have to be able to suspend somebody under those circumstances. So, for example, Sheriff Israel was elected, so we were able to do that. Now, had he been appointed, which Miami-Dade is appointed, then my suspension authority would not have attached. And so it's a matter of what I can legally do under the law. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yep.